Hello and welcome aboard the Silverwind. My name is Captain Tom, and we are joined by my co-host and intergalactic robot friend Wilson. So welcome aboard. Today we are going to be going over Genesis Chapter 17. So Dan Yoder, this guy, Julian, nice to see you guys. Welcome aboard. All right, so before we get into Genesis 17, there's something that we want to do. Now, me and Wilson have gone on a few adventures, not necessarily on the Wednesday night show, but we've tried to do some things in the universe, and not everything has necessarily gone out, like we planned. So we had the incident at Paralandriana, 100% Wilson's fault. We had the Tirnanog incident, 100% Wilson's fault. And then we had the incident with driving the Martian rover Opportunity over cliff, instead of actually just bringing it back. Once again, that may have been a 50-50 between me and Wilson. So we are going to try and make it up to the world right now by trying to save the Earth from a future calamity from a particular comet. And this comet's name is the Swift-Tuttle. So if you're not familiar with the Swift-Tuttle, this is a 16-mile diameter comet that is at about a 133-year rotation around the sun, or orbit around the sun. And then every once in a while it comes within a few million miles of Earth. Now, a few million sounds like that's pretty far away, but when it comes to celestial bodies, that's actually pretty close. And it's been projected that there's potentially could be a collision in like 112 years with this comet. That we've had other data on top of that's given us a little bit more cushion, saying, well, no, we should be fine for the next 2,000 years. So whether it's 112 or 2,000 years, eventually this comet could strike the Earth, and it's probably one of the most dangerous things that's in our current solar system. So just to give you an idea of how dangerous it is, so it's 16 miles in diameter, and it travels, when it's at its fastest speed, up to 100,000 miles per hour. Now, if something like that were to hit the planet, and we're talking about the same amount of like energy that billions of nukes would have, it would be a game ender, let's just say that. And best case scenario, maybe it hits the moon, but probably would destroy the moon, and then, well, we would have serious problems from that. We need the moon, right, to survive on Earth. So yeah, we're going to go to this comet. Wilson is working all day on tracking this thing down. It's at the perfect spot. It won't be at another perfect spot like this for another 133 years. Perfect spot for us to hit it, nudge it in a certain direction so it travels safely out of our solar system and we never have to worry about it again. So yeah, you guys ready to do this? Let's see here. We get Lionel. Let's go Captain Tom and our brother Wilson. Heck yeah. Julian, I only run 1 mile and that feels long. Yes, yeah, that's true. I think I'm up to doing like 3 and then I'm wiped, right? But yeah, a few million miles within a comet can be pretty scary. So yeah, we're going to do something about the comet Swift-Tuttle, and then then we'll go into our story. So let's go ahead. I'm going to wind this music. Yeah, well, we can leave the music for now. Let's go to our course. Wilson, you ready for this? All right, you guys ready for this? Let's see about getting in. Let's see about saving the world. Let's do it. All right, that should be it. All right, we'll say bye to Earth, everybody. Oh, Wilson. Oh, Wilson, I just knocked water all over the panel. Do you have something to clean it up? Oh, it is. Oh my gosh, it is getting everywhere. Hold up. I don't have anything. What are you getting mad about? Like, Wilson, I told you to put a cup holder in the panel when you built it. You guys imagine having a captain's chair that doesn't have a cup holder? We should have at least made it waterproof. The lights are flashing right now. Wilson, are we in trouble? I've never seen it do that before. Okay, all right, well, let's not panic, everybody. I'm turning the music off. Let's see here. Yeah, I got nothing to clean it up with. It's just flashing. I don't know what to do with it. You should have made it waterproof. Oh, that's not good. That's literally I have no idea where we are. This is definitely not the solar system. That's not good. Let's see here. Oh geez. I mean, I'm trying to help. Okay, all right, I won't touch it. Well, okay, listen, come on. Like, you got to put a cup holder here in the captain's seat. This isn't my fault, right? Like, this was just bound to happen eventually. Well, I don't know where we are, and we're gonna have to. Can you get us back from here? Why'd you send us here? Okay, all right. I don't have to have time to listen to you and argue with about it, Wilson. Let's all right, well, we'll just continue the show from here, I guess. Yeah, okay. Well, let's see here. What can we do to salvage this situation? That we're not going to be able to go back to that comet, are we? All right, well, maybe we can go observe it one day, but I think knocking it off course is probably won't be able to do that for another 133 years. So unfortunately, you know, it's not like we made anything worse with the comet. So, you know, it's still just going to kind of be on its course as per usual. So anyways, you know, easy come, easy go. Let's well, I'm just trying to hit the transition scene. Well, let's go ahead and go back to you know, I mean, it's kind of a cool place. We're in the middle of a crazy nebula. We'll have to get Wilson to clean this mess up and you know, just kind of move on with the show. The show must continue. So we're going to go and we're going to read Genesis chapter 17, get into that. And yeah, let's see here. All right, well, I mean, I won't touch anything then, Wilson. Let's you make it happen then. So all right, well, we'll see you guys back aft. Okay, well, you know, it's we're in the middle of nowhere space, and I guess that's you know, that's not the worst thing in the world. So let's see here. Yeah, this actually kind of makes a pretty nice little scene right here. All right, well, we will soldier on and continue with our read. Where we left off was with Abram and Sarai and how they essentially were trying to make God's plan, God's promise happen in their own way. And in order to try and get some descendants for themselves, Sarai was feeling really down on herself, feeling like she was left out of this promise of descendants because she was getting much older. She was in her, you know, almost 90 at the time. And so she had her servant basically, you know, gave her servant to Abram and said, here. And he just went with it because he was only focused on you know, the promise of having descendants and not really paying attention to anything else. And in that process, basically heaped on a lot more trouble into his life, avoidable trouble, trying to make things happen that God promised him in a worldly way, right? So God took care of Hagar and Ishmael, which is the son that she bore. She went back with Abram and Sarai, and God basically kind of had to intercede in that situation to clean up the mess a little bit. So we're going to start off from that part of the story and in chapter 17. So it'd probably be helpful if I was there in the book itself. And yeah, we're just going to start reading here. So let's see here. Every captain needs a couple. Exactly. You know what? Let's do this because I'm going to hear it later from Wilson. Let's see. This is going to be a good thing to try and do. Can I create... I wonder if I can. Let's see, I think I can create a poll. Yeah, let's create a poll right now. Let's see here. Let's do this. Let's, all right. This question. Let's see. What should I ask? How should I ask this question? How about this? Should a captain There we go. Alt. There we go. Might as well fix that. Maybe yes or no, and we're just gonna start that poll. How about that? All right, let's just do that. So yeah, let's see here. That background looks so cool. Not Wilson's fault. Oof. All right. So at least the comet won't hit the Silverwind. Yeah, you know what? That was I guess that was always a risk, a distinct possibility. I mean, who knows where we are right now? We could be in danger right now. I have no idea. It's kind of scary to be just in a random place in the universe. Hopefully Wilson can get us back. Otherwise, Yeah, I guess we'll be lost in space forever. So let's get to more important things right now. Like, moving on with the show here, reading chapter 17. You guys can react in the poll if you want, and we'll just kind of move on from there. So let's go ahead and go to a different little view here, and I'm going to start reading. We're going to start reading 1 through 2 right here. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am El Shaddai, God Almighty. Serve me faithfully and live a blameless life. I will make a covenant with you by which I will guarantee to give you the countless descendants, or give you countless descendants. All right. So we have, God showing up and reconfirming what he has promised to Abram. Now, this is, it has something interesting that says here. It says the Lord appeared to him. Whether or not this is God like physically showing up as the, through the sun as the angel of the Lord to Hagar, or if this is God just kind of like in a vision or a dream and not literally being there. So, that's, it doesn't necessarily have to be literal in that sense, but El Shaddai, let's talk about that a little bit. So traditionally, I mean, it's not, there's a few different debates on what this actually means. So one of the most common ways of interpreting this is El Shaddai, which would be 3 different, Hebrew words, meaning God who is sufficient. And and the root for that is to display power. So we just had an incident where Abram decided to take matters into his own hands, literally, and basically kind of made a huge mess in his life and in other people's lives. And God is showing up now and saying, like, listen, I'm sufficient, right? You don't have to go and make my promise come true. I'm going to do that. And then also coming from that root that to display power, God is basically saying, with this name that he's given himself, he's saying that I'm going to display my power, and I am sufficient to do this work, right? I don't need your help, Abram, to bring about my plan, if that makes sense. So it's almost like coming out as a little bit of a rebuttal to the things that happen in chapter 16, which it's good that those things are being addressed, because it was not good what they did, Abram and Sarai to Hagar. Now, it talks about being blameless, and that can sound like, hey, I want you to be perfect. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is, and I've got the little definition right here, not able to be accused of doing wrong. And so it's a little bit different from the idea of never having done something wrong, because God is going to set up, and clearly has set up in the past, a system of sacrifices and a way for people to be made right with him. So we're definitely going to get into a lot more details of what that means throughout this story. And then, of course, with the New Testament through Jesus Christ, we have just simply like that belief and that faith is all that is required for your sins to be basically, on the cross, right? And there, you are no longer able to be accused of your sin because you believe in Jesus Christ, and he's taken those sins away from you. So it's that's basically what blameless means right here. So, he has to basically, follow what God is saying and the terms of the covenant. And so, or being all in for God and his way. We saw Abram and Sarai here. We see, especially with Abram, how he's all in for God. And then suddenly he's just kind of relying on his own wisdom. And then he makes a mess of things. And then he's like all in for God. So he has a little bit of back and forth so far with this story. So we're going to see if he goes back to being all in for God or not in this chapter. But so this is basically what God is requesting from him, and saying that he's going to do the work of bringing about the descendants and that sort of thing himself. So we're going to get more details on this. Let's go ahead and jump into the next section, which is going to be 3 through 6. All right. At this, Abram fell face down on the ground. Then God said to him, "This is my covenant with you. I will make with you the father of a multitude of nations. What's more, I am changing your name. It will no longer be Abram. Instead, you will be called Abraham, for you will be the father of many nations. I will make you extremely fruitful. Your descendants will become many nations, and kings will be among them." All right. So we've got We got God basically giving Abram a new name. So there's some significance in giving a name to something. So God allowed Adam, and in the very early part of the story, to name all the animals. And basically what that meant is that he was putting the animals under, Adam's care, right? And so by extension, all of humanity is to rule and govern the animals and living things that are in God's creation, right? So he's putting man in charge of those things. And so as a show of belonging, he allows the man to name the animals. So in this way, God is giving a name to Abram, where it's no longer Abram anymore. Now it's Abraham. And Abram means father of many, where Abraham means father of many nations, which is to, basically magnify the blessing that God has promised Abraham a lot more than what he was probably expecting. This idea, well, I'll have a lot of descendants that'll make a big nation, that sort of thing. That's a big promise by itself. But now it's to be a father of many nations. And this is really interesting because, yes, in Israel's history, there are instances of different nations. Some of it comes about through civil war and things like that. But there's a bigger truth here with the whole story that we see, that the church is by extension the adopted children of Abraham in this promise. And so we see later on how the fruition of this and the blessing of many nations is for essentially people all over the world to be adopted into this promise and the people of God. So it's not exclusively just the Israelites, right? Not just exclusively his physical descendants, but all people of the world can be included in this. So that is, once again, being a father of many nations, which is pretty cool stuff here. And then on top of that, let's see here. I think that's pretty much it for that section right there. Let's see here. Well, Wilson's back in the room. We got, did you clean it all up? Is okay. All right. He seems fine. Are we going to be good getting back home? He says we'll see. All right. Well, this has a lid on it. Don't give me those eyes. This has a lid on it. So anyways, let's go ahead and get to the next section here. It's going to be 7 through 8. All right. Well, it would help if I was in the right chapter. Okay, here we go. I will confirm my covenant with you and your descendants after you from generation to generation. This is the everlasting covenant. I will always be your God and the God of your descendants after you. And I will give the entire land of Canaan, where you now live as a foreigner, to you and your descendants. It will be their possession forever, and I will be their God. All right, big promise. There's a promise of land. We understand why God is, the Canaanites are cursed. We understand why. We've covered that before. They're up to no good. They're going to go full pre-flood, and God's going to do something about it. But here we have God basically promising that this is not just a covenant he's making with him, but it's a renewing covenant for every single generation, through Abraham here. And so there's going to be, some nice symbolism coming up that has to do with basically confirming that this is from one generation to the next. And it's a renewing one. So just say one generation decides not to follow God. Well, the next generation after that is going to have an opportunity to, stay in this covenant. And basically, it can never be broken through one bad generation or anything like that. So it's a pretty amazing promise. And it's also a very personal promise. God's not talking about ruling on high, very distant from them. And he's making himself to being a very personal God and very personal to them and all of his descendants, which is, some pretty cool stuff. We're obviously going to see a lot of that as the story goes. But we'll go ahead and get into the next part here if no one has anything, and we'll keep making it happen here. All right, so we're going to go through 9 through 14. Then God said to Abraham, your responsibility is to obey the terms of the covenant. You and all your descendants have this continual responsibility. This is the covenant that you and your descendants must keep. Each male among you must be circumcised. All right. I'm just going to make a quick pause right there. I didn't read through everything I said I was going to read. We're going to go back to it. I will say, and I'll probably have to do this every once in a while with the Bible, that if you have little ones in the room or anything like that, this would be a good opportunity. If you don't want to have a conversation with them on what that means, because the Bible is going to go into a little bit of detail. It's not overly graphic, but it is going to go into detail. And we are going to have a little bit of a detailed conversation around this subject. So just a little disclaimer. You have little ones, you can either pause the video right here, have them leave the room, come back to it, that sort of thing. And I'll let you know when we're done talking about it. But yeah, if you don't want to have that conversation with your kids, then you have been warned, and I want to give you that courtesy, right? So we're not going to shy away and give the Sunday school version of this. We're going to actually read it. So yeah, let's just go back into it. All right, each male among you must be circumcised. You must cut off the flesh of your foreskin as a sign of the covenant between me and you. From generation to generation, every male child must be circumcised on the 8th day after his birth. This applies not only to members of your family, but also to the servants born in your household and the foreign-born servants whom you have purchased. All must be circumcised. Your bodies will bear the mark of my everlasting covenant. Any male who fails to be circumcised will be cut off from the covenant family for breaking the covenant. All right. Well, we have a little bit to discuss here, because there are definitely, from a modern perspective, it's easy to look at something like this and go, what a random, weird thing to require of people to do. And is there any real benefit to it? Like, why do this particular thing? Because it's very painful, especially for someone who is an adult doing this. Obviously, it's painful for children too, but just in general, it's not that pleasant of a thing, and it's around a bit of a difficult subject. So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about the symbolism of it, because it actually is perfect symbolically. And there are some pretty cool things additional to that. So symbolically, it is appropriately placed as a reminder of the everlasting covenant from generation to all generations. It's an appropriate place to be a reminder of that specific thing. And then the removal of flesh is a rejection of worldliness. It's a rejection of ungodliness. Oftentimes ungodliness is referred to as the desires of the flesh. And so this is symbolically removing yourself, from that and discarding it and choosing God, which is a big part of, worshiping God, which is to deny the self and to, be all in for God in faith and that sort of thing. So in your relationship with him. And so there's that symbolism as well. Now, that's primarily the purpose of this, but there are some interesting facts. Probably shouldn't hit the microphone. There are some interesting facts around this as far as, was there any other benefit to this? And there's actually some pretty advanced medical knowledge on the practice of circumcision. The Israelites were not the only ones to do this. There were some other surrounding nations who came up with it first. It could be that this is the very first time this is happening. It could also be that this was already happening in Egypt, and Abraham is familiar with the practice because he was in Egypt once, and he kind of heard or saw that this was a cultural practice there. So that's kind of debatable on who started it at any point in time. But there are a few nations in history that practice this. And here's something interesting right here. So when I was Googling this and trying to figure out, is there any kind of medical purpose for this, or is there any kind of benefit? There were tons of articles, tons of medical articles and things like that got into a lot of detail. But I have this little synopsis from Google that kind of summarized everything that I was finding really well. So basically it reads this: 81 published studies and abstracts provides evidence that the male circumcision is a powerful tool to reduce women's risk of cervical cancer. And I'm going to try and get through these medical terms, so bear with me. Oncogenic human papillomavirus, HPV, bacterial vaginosis, trichomonas vaginalis, and genital ulcer disease. So it's actually, a really good practice for the cleanliness in that area of the body that actually benefits women in society more than anything else. So the men go through the pain of having this done, and the women benefit in the long term from this. And so that is basically, there's a lot of medical research done on this to validate that. That is definitely something that is more kind of 1900s studied, confirmed in modern science. And it's why the default in hospitals is typically, at least in Western culture, that this is done kind of as an automatic practice. Now, what about the 8 days? That seems oddly specific. So we have another interesting medical knowledge here. The human body, as a baby, when you're born, you don't have normal levels of vitamin K in your body when you're first born. And it takes between like 5 to 7, days old for those vitamin K levels to be at a normal level. And the reason that's important is because that's involved with blood clotting and to do proper blood clotting in the body. So 8 days is actually the earliest that you could safely do an operation like this on a child without them, suffering any kind of really negative consequences from it. So, it's pretty interesting that right here in the Bible, we have, these things that they didn't understand the details of this back then. And yet we're still getting like, I would say some really good, cohesive with modern medical, and understanding on how to properly go about these things, which, we got to say this. So this is going to be used oftentimes and there's a lot of these things in the Bible as evidence for why the Bible is the word of God, because how could these people have known, these crazy details, that they didn't have any understanding of bacteria or vitamins or anything like that. So how are they like writing some, ancient document, so many thousands of BC old? How are they writing about stuff that's very cohesive with modern science? And, to the benefit of using that as evidence for its being God's word, because you could say, well, that's just it's just a coincidence. Well, if the Bible were instructing them to do something in such a way that wasn't in line with medical, understanding of like, hey, that's actually really harmful to the body, it would be used as evidence to say that the Bible is not God's word. So to be fair, if the inverse would be used against it, then we have to be able to give credit to the idea that, well, if it is God's word, it should be accurate on these things and shouldn't be harmful. He shouldn't be telling his people to do something harmful to themselves. And it turns out that there's actually great medical, benefit to what they're doing and how they're going about it. So anyways, that's probably, a lot on that subject, but I thought it was really interesting and wanted to share that with you guys. So anyways, yes, if you have little ones, you can bring them back in and we won't talk about it anymore. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead. Let me see here. All right, great knowledge. All that is new to me, but I believe it's accurate. Absolutely. And once again, you should always look things up on your own, especially when you're reading the Bible and something comes up of interest, kind of like this subject was for me, and I immediately went and tried to do my own research on it. Doing your own research is going to really help you to not only understand it, but to kind of own those ideas. So in conversation, you'll be like, actually, here, let me give you some cool facts. So I always encourage you guys to look this stuff up on your own as well. So I'm gonna have to get a drink of water if I do the next reading. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna go through 15 through 16. So, what about Sarai and all of this? Remember, Sarai in the last chapter thought she was being left out of God's promise and probably thought that she wasn't important, right? And this really brought her in a low place emotionally in her self-worth, which is the beginning of the entire problem with the Hagar situation, which Abraham is primarily, or Abram at the time, but Abraham primarily had the fault of not seeing that his wife was troubled and just going along with something because he had his eyes set on the thing that he wanted in those circumstances. So let's go ahead and see what God has to say about Sarai. All right. It's going to be 15 through 16. Let's do it. Then God said to Abraham, regarding Sarai, your wife, her name will no longer be Sarai. From now on, her name will be Sarah. and I will bless her and give you a son from her. Yes, I will bless her richly, and you will become the mother, and she will become the mother of many nations. Kings of nations will be among her descendants. All right. So that's pretty cool. So we have she's being given a name as well, and God is basically, as I was trying to say earlier, and I think I strayed away from the thought. God is showing like, hey, you are my people, and I'm making this covenant with you, and I'm showing you that I'm taking responsibility and ownership for you as a people, so you can trust me because I'm El Shaddai, right? You can trust me with this, and I'm going to make it happen without you having to do something crazy like you did before. And so now he's elevating Sarai. So this is an interesting thing about her name. Sarai means my lady or my princess. There's that kind of possessive part of the name to that. Sarah, which is very similar to Sarai, just means lady or princess, right? There's no my in there anymore. And it is an elevation of her status in general, and basically saying like, you are going to be the mother of many, and even kings and royalty are going to come from you, and so you're going to be this great matriarch for many people. And so this really kind of it gives her that importance and elevates her in a way that she was concerned about in the first place, which is it's really cool to see that God is basically coming in and kind of rebuking them for what they did before, but doing so in a loving way by lifting them up and saying, hey, you guys are meant for something more than what you guys were trying to do before. So I think that's really beautiful, and did not leave her out, which is pretty awesome. Because keep in mind, like, technically Abraham has a son right now. It's just not through Sarai, or it's not through Sarah. So we're going to see what he has to say on that. So there's that issue, that lingering issue that is here still. So let's go ahead and continue the reading, 17 through 22. Let's make it happen. All right. Then Abraham bowed down to the ground, but he laughed to himself in disbelief. How could I become a father at the age of 100? He thought. And how can Sarah have a baby when she is 90 years old? So Abraham said to God, may Ishmael live under your special blessing? But God replied, no, Sarah, your wife, will give birth to a son for you. You will name him Isaac, and I will confirm my covenant with him and his descendants as an everlasting covenant. As for Ishmael, I will bless him also, just as you have asked. I will make him extremely fruitful and multiply his descendants. He will become the father of 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will be confirmed with Isaac, who will be born to you and Sarah about this time next year. When God had finished speaking, he left Abraham. I'm gonna have to get used to the name change now. I can't imagine how that name change would have to be for Abraham, who knew Sarah his whole life, his half sister, probably knew her for her entire life, 90 years, and now has to start calling her a different name. That's gotta be a little trippy, but so he's concerned about Ishmael, his son through Hagar. And so, God isn't changing his mind on blessing Ishmael or anything like that just because Abraham is asking him to. God already confirmed to Hagar that he was going to bless her and Ishmael, and he would be the father of a great nation as well. So God has already promised this blessing or given this blessing through Hagar. So God is just letting Abraham know, like, my plans for Ishmael, I'm not just going to leave him out in the cold. I have plans to bless him as well. But as far as this covenant I'm making with you right now, that's going to be through Isaac. And Sarah is going to be the one who gives birth to Isaac, and she's 90 years old. So, basically this would have to be a miracle. And so God has set up the circumstances so that, it won't be a guess or at all at who is bringing this thing about. God is going to do something big and make this happen in a big way. So, once again, in the previous chapter, they stopped trusting in God and they were trying to make things happen themselves. And Sarah's advanced age probably was part of her believing that God wasn't going to give her a child for obvious reasons. And there is a little part in here where it says that Abraham laughs to himself. That's going to be important for the next chapter, but a little bit on that. So, that had to basically, it seems like with the language here, that's kind of testing God's patience a little bit, where, God is saying, listen, I'm going to make this happen. He starts to kind of laugh. It says in disbelief. But we can see through the rest of this chapter right here where Abraham's heart is, and his heart is in a place where it's actually in a good place when he does this. So his faith is a little shaken right here, but God, and I love how God keeps repeating this, Sarah, your wife, where it's almost like he's really kind of getting on to Abraham for what he did in the previous chapter. Is like, hey, remember Sarah, your wife? It's just like, he just keeps on making that clear. So God is in this story so far, God has done a lot of protecting for Sarah, both in Egypt and right now. That's pretty interesting. But with that, let's go ahead. So God leaves. Once again, whether he was there literally or just kind of in a vision or that sort of thing, it's very vague. We don't really know. But yeah, we can read on through the rest of this chapter here and see, what does Abraham do with this knowledge? Is he still in that place where he was kind of relying on his own, what we call cleverness? I think that's probably a good way of describing him and several of his descendants, his own cleverness and wit to try and make things happen. Or is he going to fully trust in God with this? So let's see what he does. All right, starting verse 23. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and every male in his household, including those born there and those he had bought. Then he circumcised them, cutting off their foreskins, just as God had told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised. Oof. And Ishmael, his son, was 13. Both Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised on that day. On that same day, along with all the other men and boys of their household, whether they were born there or bought as servants, all were circumcised with him. Well, that does mean that, as soon as this meeting, it concludes with God, he doesn't take any time to think about it or anything like that. He just immediately says, get all the boys together. We're doing this thing, and they immediately do it. Now, that's really significant because if you know anything about, the circumcision, that'll put you down for a few days, maybe more than a week. While that's healing, you're kind of crippled as a man, and that will be brought up later in the Bible as well. But for now, think about this. All the fighting men in his household, including himself, are now going to be kind of bedridden for a few days. That's a really scary situation if you think about it, because he's fully trusting God with a set of circumstances that by any kind of human wisdom, well, you would maybe say, okay, we'll take half of them, we'll do this in shifts, right? We don't want to be completely defenseless. But here we see Abraham's heart, and this is what I was referring to earlier, where he's fully in 100% for God again, and which is good. He's just all right, God said to do this. I'm going to fully trust in him and just do it. And so, that's a man of faith for you right there. So let's see here. Lisa, nice to see you, Lisa. Love the galaxy view we have today. Heck yeah, grateful to be a girl. All right, nice. Father-son bonding for this guy. Heck yeah. Yeah, speaking of father-son bonding, you're absolutely right. That would be quite the bonding experience. We remember that day forever. Let's see here, Julian. Nice. When I got circumcised, I didn't walk for almost a year. Yeah, nice. Just some guy. That's a good one. Yeah, that makes sense. You probably got it when you were a baby, right? All right, so let's go ahead. Reminds me of a really funny joke that about two kids sitting in a doctor's office. But yeah. Okay, so let's keep moving forward here. I think I pretty much have that. I think I got through everything in my notes and talking about the story. The story ends there today. We'll pick up on the next chapter tomorrow, where Sarah is going to get the news of this promise, right? So we've got a pretty cool, when you really think about it, this practice of confirming the covenant has some really good symbolism to it. And it's also something that has a lot of benefit to their society, even though they probably wouldn't have been aware of that benefit for a long, long time, if ever, right? I mean, this is kind of more of a modern scientific finding that there's actually a lot of medical benefit to what they were doing. So that's pretty cool stuff. Once again, being the word of God, God would have known the benefit, and God would have been making his people in a way clean, right, and set apart, which is a big part of this. And we'll see that concept of cleanliness and that sort of thing as more laws are being revealed. But God is revealing his nature. So one of the things that Abraham doesn't have that we have, so we got the full story. We can read the whole thing, go back and go like, man, Abraham, didn't you know that God would not want you to try and make this happen in that way with Hagar? But he's operating on a limited amount of information. He doesn't have the Bible to read. He probably doesn't have any, scriptures or anything like that. He's operating on just trying to figure out who God is in the moment and in these limited interactions that he has with him, and understanding the nature of God and his personality and what he cares about. So God is giving a lot of leniency. He doesn't just come down hard on Abraham and Sarah when they did what they did with Hagar, and we see that God is operating on every side here to try and make the best of a bad situation that ultimately was caused by Abraham earlier. But we now see Abraham is fully charged, 100% on board with doing things God's way, and we see that trust that he puts in God at the end of this. So it ends on a really good note, and they go from villains the last chapter to heroes again here, and there's something really human about that in the story. So anyways, that stuff's pretty cool. Let's see here. We got Lionel. Thank you, Captain Tom. Great study. Silverwind rocks. Love you, brother. Love you too, brother. Let's all right, I think we're gonna go ahead and go back to the front. Wilson, are we stuck here forever, or you can get us home? All right, so Wilson says he can get us home. Well, you wouldn't leave me here. He's just joking. All right, let's go ahead, and I will see you guys back at the front of the ship. Well, all right, say goodbye to the purple nebula, I suppose. I'm really curious where this is. Now that we've come here and we didn't die, so that's kind of nice. I mean, a lot worse things. Listen, a lot worse things could have happened. We could have ended up inside of a star or a black hole or something. I mean, technically, there's a very low chance of hitting anything in space if you just drop into a random location, but there is still a chance you might hit something, right? So it's good just to avoid that. The vast majority of space is absolutely nothing, so it's kind of a was to our benefit. Kind of found a cool, sweet location, so maybe we'll come back here one day. Maybe we'll try and find some other nebulas, right? If you guys like this one. I see that what we got for the poll. Should I end the poll? I think we had how many votes do we have here? All right, well, we have 100. Oh, look at that, poll complete. We got 6 votes. Let's see here. Should I have a cup holder? AK, this is Wilson's fault. 100% yes. You got outvoted, Wilson. So we're good on that front here. So let's go ahead and you got it cleaned up, but it's still not really working right. All right, I'm gonna try and work with Wilson's attempt here at making this. Let's see here. I think. All right, Wilson, you just gonna get us back? Let's see it. See if you can do it. All right. Well, we'll either make it back to Earth or just I don't know. This will be the end. Let's see here. I'm sure we'll be fine. I'm sure. Okay. Well, yeah. So, we didn't save the world. you know what, I'm sure it'll all work out, right? I'm sure it'll all work out. So, you know, if a comet's supposed to hit Earth, maybe it's meant to hit the Earth. I don't know. So yeah, let's see. It's a good chance it never will. Kind of a nice thing too. All right. Oh, there it is. Okay, we found it, everybody. Good stuff. Let's see. Let's make sure we're ready to anchor ourselves. Okay. All right, perfect. Well, I appreciate you guys stopping by. You know, if there is, you guys ever have any questions or anything like that, you know, we have the live settings so that we can interact and have those conversations. I am always, you know, ready and willing to have any kind of conversation. You know, if I don't know it, I'll look it up. But, you know, other than that, just to understand the story, this is, it's pretty interesting how, you know, God handles dealing with people, and he's actually showing a lot of grace, a lot of love, a lot of patience, despite the fact that as people, we're capable of doing some really messed up things when we, you know, aren't thinking critically, and we're only thinking about the things that we want. So anyways, there's a lesson in there somewhere. So with that, we'll end on that, and I will catch you guys next time.
I know the air I'm breathing, it's no good for my lungs. I do this every season, I hate when summer comes. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. And I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Self-destructive, I take a hit, I love it. Can you give me a second? I'm slow, got blurry vision. I fall into a trap that I made by myself. Oh, and I always do the wrong thing. I'm unstable and I'm unsteady, I've lost a million times already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down. I feel unable and so unworthy, my heart feels heavy, I've lost already, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to slow down now. Please help me see the things that I am. I don't understand. I'm doing the best that I can right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even